here and now. The here and now. What is the Here and Now podcast about? It is a distillation of ideas from psychology, philosophy, and the life sciences, which helps to bridge the gap between science and daily life. One of the biggest challenges for science is to communicate complex ideas in a way that people understand and to see how they are relevant to everyday life. This does not assume that non-scientists are incapable of understanding heady topics reserved solely for brainiacs. I'm no scientist myself. It's more about how we communicate those ideas and make them relatable. But why is this important? There are two main reasons. The first is to encourage people to think beyond their immediate surroundings in the bubble that is their daily lives. The age of the internet and computers has unlocked vast amounts of information, and through podcasts, YouTube, and other digital mediums, we can now consume that information in easy-to-digest chunks on our daily commute, or when exercising, cooking dinner, or at a million other times we would otherwise not be putting to good use. In those moments when we're doing one task but thinking about another, we are open to a flow state where we can really begin to think about ideas that may not have occurred to us before. We are open to epiphanies which could potentially be life-changing, if not at least educational. The Here and Now podcast exists in that space. The second reason is that science needs us. Scientific research, whether into fields as vast and complex as space, or into the big questions of philosophy, such as who are we and why are we here, or areas closer to home like mental health as understood by psychology. Research into those fields takes time and money, and that money tends to come from educational institutions, governments, and other publicly funded entities. When science becomes too detached from the public that supports it, they forget how important and relevant it is to life today, and more importantly, in the future. When that happens, science loses its support, and solving the hard problems faced by humanity becomes even more difficult. My goal for the Here and Now podcast is to help to bridge that gap by raising interesting and sometimes complex ideas and presenting them in what I hope is a compelling way. I want to take you on a journey with every episode, which leaves you knowing a little bit more, asking questions, and maybe even doing some research of your own. Perhaps an episode will offer you a little nugget of advice or a new way of thinking about life that you hadn't considered before. Perhaps it will resonate with you in some way. Maybe it'll be a conversation starter that helps you to figure out how you really feel about a topic. That is certainly something that I've been getting out of it. Ultimately though, if the Here and Now podcast helps to make you a more rounded and informed individual, then I've achieved my aim. If you enjoy the podcast, please share it with your social network, mention it to your friends and family, and give it a rating on the Apple Podcast app. The more ratings it gets, the higher it will feature in the podcast list, and the more chance we have of reaching new listeners. It's also an important way of reaching potential guests, as many require a podcast to have a certain level of listenership before they'll come on for an interview. I believe that our future lies in our relationships with one another and improving our ability to think rationally about the world and ourselves. If you also feel this way, and the podcast has resonated with you, then please support it by sharing it with your network. Get in touch if you have ideas for episodes or feedback on any of the topics covered. I'd love to hear from you. So thanks for joining me on this journey in the Here and Now.